Thirdly, it analyzes and responses on religious issues that occurred in 2017, which are the banning of Hizbut Tahrir Indonesia (HTI), the recurrent controversy of PKI, Indonesian Communist Party, and the ruling of Constitutional Court on Penghayat Kepercayaan. So this presentation will be delivered by Dr. Ahmad Najib Burhani, which is a senior researcher at the Indonesian Institute of Science, or LIPI, Jakarta. He received his PhD in religious study from University of California, Santa Barbara, USA. During the last year of his study, he won Professor Charles Wendell Memorial Award from UCSB for the academic achievement in the field of Islamic and Middle Eastern studies. Since his doctorate, Najib Burhani has been active in publishing articles in top academic journals such as Asian Journal of Social Science by NUS and Brill, Indonesia and the Malay World by SOAS and Routledge, Islam and Christian Muslim Relation, Birmingham and Routledge, published by Birmingham and Routledge, Sojourn, published by ICS, Contemporary Islam by Springer, and Asian Politics and Policy by Wiley and Blackwell. He also contributed articles for edited volumes published by Palgrave Macmillan Press, Amsterdam University Press, ICS, and so on. So his monograph includes Sufism Kota in 2001, Islam Dinamis in 2001, Tarikat Tanpa Tarikat in 2002, Muhammadiyah Jawa in 2010, and Muhammadiyah Berkemajuan in 2016. Currently, he serves as the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Masyarakat and Budaya and an editorial board of the journal Contemporary Islam by Springer. So he was a fellow at the Center of Religion, Culture and Conflict, or CRCC, Drew University, New Jersey, USA, IIT, or known as International Institute of Islamic Thought in Virginia, USA, ISIM, International Institute for the Study of Islam in the Modern World, Leiden, Netherlands, and the Center of Southeast Asian Studies, CSEAS, Kyoto University, Japan. Since June 2017, he is a visiting fellow at ICS Yusof Ishak Institute, Singapore. Without further ado, I would like to welcome our guest speakers for the day.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Farouk and also Ehsan, and also I think Professor Chomo is still there, and my friend Azhar Ibrahim. I think I'm very happy to be here. When I was invited to come to IRF, a friend of mine telling me that you will come to a liberal, Malaysian liberal Muslim group. Yeah? So this organization is considered by some of Indonesian friends equivalent to the JIL, Jaringan Islam Liberal in Indonesia. I'm not sure about that one, but I think some people are using the term liberal without understanding the meaning of that one, and just branding every group that they don't agree as liberal. Tuan-tuan, teman-teman semuanya, the presentation that I would like to talk right now is slightly different from the paper, because after listening the talk from Professor Chomo last night and also from Dr. Azhar Ibrahim, I think I need to shift several topics from the paper that I wrote to the topic that closely relevant to the to the topic presented by previous presenters. So, and fortunately, I just gave the PowerPoint this morning, so I have a chance to change several part of the PowerPoint. Bapak-bapak, ibu-ibu. So the topic that I would like to talk is about Muhammadiyah and Islamic development in Indonesia. Previously, this is about social services and religious tolerance or something like that in Muhammadiyah, but then it's very detailed perhaps, and then this one is more a bit general about the topic on Muhammadiyah. And before talking more closely about the issue and on Muhammadiyah and development, I will show you a clip, just 4 minutes, about Muhammadiyah. This one is made by my team, at the Majelis Pustaka and Informasi Pimpinan Pusat Muhammadiyah. So I'm one of the head at the Muhammadiyah organization in Indonesia. Okay, please someone can help me to show the video.
Muhammadiyah lebih dari 1 abad dikenali negeri. Jauh sebelum Indonesia merdeka, Muhammadiyah telah ikut membangun fondasi bangsa, terinspirasi oleh surah Ali Imran ayat 104 yang mendorong agar umat membentuk satu gerakan yang menyerukan kepada kebaikan dan mencegah kemungkaran. Kiai Haji Ahmad Dahlan mengorganisir umat untuk dakwah amar ma'ruf nahi munkar mencakup 3 area: santunan kaum duafa atau feeding, pendidikan atau schooling, dan kesehatan atau healing. Santunan kaum duafa atau feeding. Di awal berdirinya, Muhammadiyah mendorong anggotanya untuk memberi makan, memberi pakaian dan perlindungan orang miskin di sekitar Kauman Jogja. Kini telah memiliki 384 panti asuhan yatim piatu Muhammadiyah tersebar di seluruh Indonesia. Pendidikan atau schooling. Muhammadiyah adalah pelopor sekolah modern di Indonesia dengan menggunakan sistem kelas dan bangku yang dianggap meniru Belanda. Kaum pribumi mendapat kesempatan mempelajari ilmu umum. Kini Muhammadiyah telah memiliki ribuan sekolah madrasah, pesantren dan perguruan tinggi. Kesehatan atau healing. Melalui PKO, Muhammadiyah menyediakan layanan kesehatan untuk rakyat. Kini Muhammadiyah telah memiliki 461 rumah sakit, BKIA dan balai pengobatan. Gerakan sosial Muhammadiyah bersifat inklusif, mendukung dialog dan keragaman. Kegiatan sosialnya tak pandang golongan dan agama. Bahkan, Muktamar ke-47 di Makassar melahirkan rekomendasi tentang dakwah komunitas, layanan terhadap kelompok difabel dan minoritas, serta peningkatan tradisi ilmiah dan dialog antar mazhab dalam mengatasi konflik di Indonesia, serta penegasan negara Pancasila sebagai Darul Ahdi wa Syahadah. Bukan hanya dalam gerakan sosial, Muhammadiyah pun berkontribusi dalam perjuangan kemerdekaan. Panglima Besar Jenderal Sudirman adalah anak Muhammadiyah dan kader Hizbul Wathon. Pasca kemerdekaan, dalam politik masa kemerdekaan, tokoh-tokoh Muhammadiyah seperti Kiai Haji Mas Mansur, Kasman Sudimejo, Ki Bagus Hadikusumo dan Kahar Musakir, Insinyur Haji Juanda dan Soekarno adalah pelaku utama dalam pembentukan negara Indonesia. Era reformasi Indonesia tahun 1998 tak lepas dari peran Amin Rais yang saat itu ketua PP Muhammadiyah yang dianggap bapak reformasi, Kiai Haji Ayah Fahrudin, Kiai Haji Ahmad Ajhar Basir MA, Profesor Syafi'i Ma'arif, dan Profesor Din Samsudin adalah nama-nama yang sempat memimpin Muhammadiyah sekaligus memberi warna pada bangsa ini. Dimulai dari Kauman Jogja, kini gerakan dan amal usaha Muhammadiyah tersebar di seluruh Indonesia. Muhammadiyah adalah ormas yang memiliki penyebaran anggota merata di seluruh provinsi di Indonesia. Bahkan pendidikan Muhammadiyah misalnya telah dibangun di berbagai daerah minoritas muslim seperti Papua, Flores, dan Manado. Kini Muhammadiyah telah berkembang di beberapa negara seperti Thailand, Mauritius, dan Singapura. Pimpinan cabang istimewa Muhammadiyah juga telah berdiri di Inggris, Belanda, Amerika Serikat, Tunisia, Mesir, Rusia, Jepang, Iran, dan sebagainya. Saat ini Muhammadiyah didukung oleh 7 organisasi otonom, yaitu Aisyah, Pemuda Muhammadiyah, Ikatan Mahasiswa Muhammadiyah, Ikatan Pelajar Muhammadiyah, Tapak Suci, Nasyatul Aisyah, dan Hizbul Waton. Secara struktur Muhammadiyah memiliki 34 pimpinan wilayah, 488 pimpinan daerah, 3.655 pimpinan cabang, dan 8.107 pimpinan ranting. Kini telah lebih dari 1 abad, Muhammadiyah terus berbakti untuk melindungi Habibie.
Okay, thank you. I'm very glad that last night Professor Chumu started the discussion on Weber, so it's easier for me to explain about Muhammadiyah. Because this organization, as some of you perhaps already know, that is characterized with several labels such as Islamic Calvinism, and then Puritan Islam, Reformist Islam, and also modernist Islam. Of course, there are several differences between these terms in terms of the way we understand these labels, but we can see that Muhammadiyah can be seen as a success blend between Islam, Islamic doctrines, and modernism. And this organization is also often be called as Islamic Protestantism or Islamic Calvinism in Indonesia. And I think this is, if we compare the number of universities belong to Muhammadiyah, 177, and number of hospitals, there is no other Muslim organizations, not only in Indonesia, but also in the world, I think, that have done better than this organization in terms of social services and education. Usually, the activities, the social services of Muhammadiyah can be classified, as you saw it in the profile, into 3 categories: schooling, feeding, and healing. Schooling is in terms of education, and then feeding is like philanthropic activities, and also helping the needy, and then healing is in terms of hospital, and also like educating people in terms of health. What I mean by similarities between Muhammadiyah and Calvinism, we can see several values that we can find in Calvinists, and at the same time, we can find it in Muhammadiyah. Of course, there are some differences, but at least we see, for instance, that one of the main teaching of the Muhammadiyah is like the doctrine of scripturalism, like Arruju ilal Quran and Sunnah, back to the Quran and Sunnah. And this one is similar to the teaching also in Calvinist on the teaching of back to the scripture. And then the second one is stand directly before God, or no priesthood in Islam. So this one is one of the different between Muhammadiyah and NU. For instance, I think some of our friends here from NU understand that one, that for instance, we have no charismatic kiai in Muhammadiyah. If someone asks who is the leader of Muhammadiyah, perhaps no one knows in this building or in Majlis. Right now, who is the leader of Muhammadiyah and who is the previous leader of Muhammadiyah? Because we don't have such kind of charismatic leader who has ultimate authority to control the Muhammadiyah. And everybody stand alone before the God. So it's based on your amal, faith is justified by your activities alone, doctrine of sola fide. And then the third one is the teaching disenchantment of the world. Usually this teaching is translated in Muhammadiyah in the context of the doctrine of TBC. This is not tuberculosis, but this one is takhayul, bid'ah, and khurafat. Delusion, innovation, religious teaching without prior reference to the Quran and Sunnah, and then the Khurafat is what you call it, like superstitions. Yeah. So this one is that Muhammadiyah teaches its people to be like following faithfully to the TBC, Takhayul, not following the TBC, Takhayul, Bid'ah, and Khurafat. So it's like differentiating between this world and another world. And then the fourth one, I think, the teaching of rationalization. So modernization in Muhammadiyah is often translated as rationalization. You don't need to believe something related to supernatural and also to follow religion based on the ratio. And following the teaching of Ahmad Dahlan, I think last meeting was the discussion on Siri Pemikiran Islam Ahmad Dahlan. One of his two books is talking about following akal hati nurani or akal sehat. That's the main teaching of Ahmad Dahlan. And then and the fifth similarities between Muhammadiyah and Calvinism is inner worldly asceticism. So the meaning of this one is you can find in several talk from the Muhammadiyah leaders, for instance, that stressing that if we are talking about min atharis sujud, the what you call it athar is if you are like prostrating several times, then there is a tattoo in your head or something like that. You know? So this one, the other sujud is not in terms of tattoo in your head or in your hand, but this one in terms of buildings, in terms of hospital, in terms of social activities that you did or you have done in this human activities. So inner worldly asceticism or other sujud is implemented in this world, implemented not waiting until we die, but we have to create God-given in this world. So that some similarities between Muhammadiyah and Calvinism. But of course, if we are talking about Calvinism, the role of individual is very important. If you are rich, then that is the proof that you are accepted by God. But in Muhammadiyah, individual is not really important. Muhammadiyah is one of the richest organizations in Indonesia, but the individual in this organization is actually not rich. So if you spend almost every year working for Muhammadiyah, the money, the properties belong to this organization, not to individual. So that's one of the reasons why this organization become a rich organization. I move to the theology, character, values of the Muhammadiyah that make this kind of organization associated or labeled as similar to Calvinism. For instance, we can find some character values that nurtured in this organization since the beginning of this organization in 1912. For instance, as a kind of a challenge to the Nahdlatul Ulama, I think this one is, there is no concept of darah biru. You know, darah biru is blue blood. It's like there is no aristocracy, there is no, what you call it, like a strict hierarchy, charismatic leader. So employing modern system of leadership is the way Muhammadiyah like run the organization. For instance, me myself, or Pak Din Samsudin. Pak Din Samsudin was an activist of NU until I think his college degree. And then during, before the college. And then during the university, at the university he joined the Muhammadiyah Student Association and go all the way until become chairman of the Muhammadiyah. So there is no limitation for someone from outside Muhammadiyah to become leader of Muhammadiyah. And there is no ethnicity, limited ethnicity group to become leader of Muhammadiyah. You can come from Sundanese, Japanese, Minangkabau, or even like any other part of Indonesia to become chairman of the Muhammadiyah. So there is no concept of darah biru, charismatic leader. And there is equality and no strict hierarchy in the leadership of Muhammadiyah. Usually it is called as what you call it, like collective collegial. So there is chairman of Muhammadiyah, but actually the leadership is held by 13 members of the leaders of Muhammadiyah. Even though you have the highest position in this organization, the decision is decided by the members. It's not you on yourself. And there is also a discipline, hardworking, independent, sedikit bicara, banyak kerja. I give you example. If you attend the Mu'tamar of Muhammadiyah, everything will be on time. So if we start at 7, we will start at 7. If on schedule at 7, and it will start at 7. And then there is like a teaching among the leaders of this movement to the, like if we are member of youth organization, never wake up later than ayam berkokok. So every day you have to wake up before ayam berkokok. That's among the teaching that always stressed by the leader of this organization. And then the concept of like schooling, healing, and schooling, healing, and feeding is based on the theology of Al-Ma'un, kindness, Surat Al-Ma'un. This one is perhaps you already know, based on the Quran 107 ayat, verse 1 until 7. So the story of this one is become mythic in Muhammadiyah. What I mean by myth here is following Bruce Lincoln. That's something authoritative, credible, and followed by the people. It's not something that abstract or not real story, but this one is something that having authority and credibility. So the story of the teaching of Al-Ma'un can be found in the movies, in the anecdotes, even in the novels. It's not only in the historical book. That during the time of Ahmad Dahlan, he taught several times to his students until the student get bored, and then why you teach us this verse every day, not moving to other verse? And then Ahmad Dahlan asked them, do you understand the verses? Yes, we understand. You don't understand this one. You understand the meaning of these verses, but you don't implement them. And then he asked them to go around Yogyakarta to find the poor people, feed them, and then to give them education, something like that. And this one is continuously maintained by the Muhammadiyah by establishing school and hospitals and orphanages in this community. So the second theology that becomes the basis of the foundation of this movement is the theology of Al-Ashar, time. This one is giving spirit of competition. Is not only among the members of Muhammadiyah and also among the Muslim people, but also competition with Christian in terms of giving education, propagation to Muslim community. But the real enemy, the real competitor, following this verse, is time. I mean, you can be defeated by other people or other group, but the real competitor is time. You can be mostly defeated by time if you are not working hard, if you are not seriously develop your knowledge and something like that. So this theology are two bases or two foundation of the Muhammadiyah. And perhaps some people always understand that, not always, perhaps people who study the Muhammadiyah pick Fastabiqul Khairat as the spirit of the competition within this movement. Like Fastabiqul Khairat, compete with each other in goodwill. In fact, this one is mostly implemented or practiced in the context of Muhammadiyah itself. If one organization, one chapter of Muhammadiyah established like hospital, another chapter, it's like become jealous and then they wanna like establish another, a different hospital in that area. But in terms of interfaith, intercultural, I will discuss it later in the second part of this presentation. And the important role of the concept of al-ma'un and social services in Muhammadiyah can be seen, for instance, right now, by the veneration of several people who have committed and showing loyalty in doing these activities. People outside the Muhammadiyah perhaps do not know the name like Said Duhulili. But this one is the icon, the new icon of Muhammadiyah. He spent the whole of his life for social services in Muhammadiyah. He passed away, I think, before 2015, and his name is used as a floating boat of Muhammadiyah, used as a floating clinic of Muhammadiyah, several buildings of Muhammadiyah. So he is not married until he died, and spending all his activities for Muhammadiyah. And during the Congress, for instance, you can go and compare the Congress of NU, the Congress of Ahmadiyah, the Congress of Muhammadiyah. Salat Jamaah, for instance, is not the main activities. This is different from Ahmadiyah. If you go there, Ahmadiyah, for instance, Salat Tahajjud is the main activities. You should wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning and performing Tahajjud until Subuh, and then followed by Salat Subuh, and then the rest of the activities is activities related to ritual. If you go to Muhammadiyah, even Salat Jumat is not organized during the Congress. So in Makassar, for instance, in 2015, there are 3 Salat Jumat in the area of Congress, and the Imam and Khatib is someone who just sit over there and then giving Friday prayer. So this one is not part of the activities of the Congress. The main activities during the Congress is the report how many schools that you have, how many hospitals that you have built, how many orphanages that you have built in this organization, how much money that you have in this organization, how much money that you have spent for the activities of the Muhammadiyah. So the main activities during the Congress is the report of the success of several branches of this Muhammadiyah. So that's one of the the value that has been nurtured, educated, and strengthened within the organization. If someone asks, is there any theology within Muhammadiyah? I think there is no organization that can survive more than 100 years without having a kind of strong theology. And the theology of Muhammadiyah is the theology of social services, or theology of al-ma'un. And this one, the trajectory of development, I'm happy that Azhar have mentioned about there is about the system of the development, the system of poverty and something like that, for the which point. But it is true that the way the Muhammadiyah deal with the issue of poverty, with the issue of development before 2000 was more individual, more like during the colonial time. And the liberation theology was just introduced by Muslim Abdurrahman in 2000 something. And so if we are going to the trajectory and development of al-ma'un, so from the invention during the time of Ahmad Dahlan, it has been developed, and during the Muslim Abdurrahman, following the liberation theology, it was like modified slightly and become LPTN, Lembaga Buruh Tani dan Nelayan. And then I agree with Azhar that many people that has been working like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but they are still poor. And then the work of Muhammadiyah is no meaning for them. Although we have been working to elevate the poverty for 100 years, the poor people still can be found everywhere because there's a system of poverty. That's one of the way, that is one of the reasons why Muslim Abdurrahman introduced liberation theology in Muhammadiyah, and this one must be adopted by this organization if in the way to tackle the poverty, like more systematically and something like that. And then, although Muslim Abdul Rahman did not succeed in promoting this one, but someone after him, Said Tuhule, I think the one who has done a lot in like implementing liberation theology, in implementing, in adopting several systems of social services, modern social services in Muhammadiyah. And now we can see that this one has been translated what is called as Trisula Muhammadiyah, MDNC, Lazismu, and MPM by 3 persons, Rahmawati Hussain, Hilman Latif, and Najrianto. So the bottom line that I would like to say here is that it is the habitus of Muhammadiyah, raison d'etre, blood, bread, and sweat of Muhammadiyah, the theology al-Ma'un, and has been implemented since the beginning of this organization. And then I think this one is the theology of Muhammadiyah. Now I move to the second part, that is more critical to Muhammadiyah. This one is like self-pricing or something like that. It's not really critical in terms of academic, but this is something that has been embedded within the organization for a long time. In terms of religious and cultural affair, I think we have to what you call it, like to prize our brothers from Nahdlatul Ulama in this context, because they have done a lot in these activities. We can say that if someone has been successful in education or in business, in economy, there is another thing that is missing in Muhammadiyah, or perhaps still not yet achieved in this organization. Or I can say that there is a consequence of being Calvinist or Puritan, being Muslim Calvinist or Muslim Puritan. That is what is called as perhaps theological conservatism and political exclusivism. That is, I think, fit with the topic of this conference, Islam and development and its impact on democracy and tolerance, something like that. Is that any, what you call it, like direct line between becoming successful in development and economy and becoming tolerance? By seeing the case of Muhammadiyah, I think there are some similarities in this context with Malaysia. I don't know, I'm correct if I'm wrong. I mean, successful in the economy doesn't mean that they are good in terms of tolerance and democracy and something like that. We can see that, for instance, in terms of theology, that Muhammadiyah is a bit conservative, a bit, what you call it, there are several terms that are often associated with Muhammadiyah. Even if you go to Buya Hamka, Muhammadiyah melalui 3 zaman, I think that's, I don't know whether still distributed here in Malaysia or not, when he told us a story about the Congress in Banjarmasin. And then when Muhammadiyah came there using the berlayar ke Banjarmasin, and then when they arrived there in 1930s, people called them Wahabi, Wahabi, Wahabi telah datang. And then the response of Buya Hamka was surprising. We are proud with this column, with this label. This is, although we are not the same as Wahhabi, but this is a kind of pujian, let's call it, to this organization. So there was no objection with the label of Wahhabism in 1930s, because at that time Wahhabism was not really known as Nauti or something. And there is also a call that this one, conservative, Wahhabi, and also perhaps some people need to admit that there is a DNA of Wahhabism within the Muhammadiyah. With the teaching of back to the scripture, Ar-Ruju ilal Quran wa Sunnah, that is one of the teaching that closely associated with Wahhabism and adopted Muhammadiyah. A strict monotheism is one of the teaching taught in Muhammadiyah. If that's part of the element of Wahhabism, I think that Muhammadiyah, there is that element. But some people try to, what you call it, like water down atau membuat agak samar association between Muhammadiyah and conservatism by telling that there are cultural diversity within Muhammadiyah. If you go to Abdul Munilamul handbook, there is a MUNU, Muhammadiyah NU, there is do I already moved to I forgot because there are two here and there, two computers. So sometimes I forgot to move that one. So if there is diversity within Muhammadiyah, there is MUNU Muhammadiyah Nahdlatul Ulama, there is Marhainis Muhammadiyah, Al-Ikhlas, Kiai Dahlan, and also there is this one from Secretary General of Muhammadiyah, Chris Muha, Kristen Muhammadiyah. We can also see Munas, Muhammadiyah Nasionalis, Musa, Muhammadiyah Salafi, and also Mushi, Muhammadiyah Syiah. So there are several labels that have been given to this in terms of culture, in terms of theological doctrine. There is a unanimous label for Muhammadiyah activities on social services with the theology of Al-Ma'un as its foundation. But if in terms of theological doctrine, there is a diversity within this movement. And it's always changing, shifting from time to time. But there is, I think, one teaching that is strongly embedded within the movement, within the organization, within the members of the movement. That is the faithful to the long-held perspective on TBC that I have mentioned before. So if we go to several places, this teaching of TBC is still alive. There are some efforts to introduce new perspectives in the context of intercultural, interreligious, and political perspective within Muhammadiyah. Particularly starting in 1995, when they changed the law on art. Previously, art was considered as haram in Muhammadiyah. That's true. So this one is very strict, this organization. There is no dance, there is no art, even the picture of Ahmad Dahlan was prohibited. But in 1995, there was a change in this organization by introducing tafsir thematic in terms of interfaith dialogue, dakwah kultural in terms of intercultural, and also majlis tarjih dan pengembangan pemikiran Islam in terms of innovation in religious thought. And also recently, in terms of nationalism, the introduction of the concept Darul Ahdi was Shahadah. Perhaps you see that the change of the law on art from haram to mubah is something very small. It's very superficial. But this one, the implication of that one, the impact of that change is tremendous within this organization. Because they adopting again dance, culture, and then trying to mingle with indigenous people, trying to be closely friendly, become close friend with indigenous community, adat, and something like that. That's the impact of of the changing small changes in terms of law in Muhammadiyah. But unfortunately, again, this one, like the introduction of interreligious and intercultural perspective within Muhammadiyah, can be seen something like alien or like what you call it, like outlier still in Muhammadiyah. I mean, during the time of Ahmad Shafi'i Ma'arif, it has been accepted during the Congress. It has been made some programs related to da'wah cultural and also interfaith dialogue, but it seems now neglected or forgotten by the Muhammadiyah. Okay, this one is what I said. The one that just introduced in 2015 about the concept of Darul Ahdi wa Shahada. The meaning of this concept is that it's like rebuttal, like rejection to the utopian idea of caliphate, khilafah, and also about the dream of implementing modern Islamic state. So by the concept of Darul Ahdi wa Shahada, Muhammadiyah tried to be realistic, loyal, and doing the best for the country, for the nation state, not thinking anymore about Khilafah and about Islamic State. That's what is called as one of the intention of introducing the concept of Darul Ahdi wa Shahada. But just 2 years after the introduction of this concept, there is a difficult test for the Muhammadiyah. That is the banning of Hizb ut-Tahrir. And the Muhammadiyah supporter, the Muhammadiyah followers, members, still not adopting this concept faithfully, because some of them still supporting like Hizb ut-Tahrir. So it's not yet become a new habitus within the Muhammadiyah. This is a concept that is accepted during the Congress, but not yet implemented widely in society. And there is a tendency to be, what you call it, a defensive within this organization in the context of culture and interreligious. One of the ideas is that the relationship between Islam and other religion should be using the concept of lakum dinukum waliyadin. It's like an exclusive way of thinking of other people instead of using the concept of fastabiqul khairat, competing and accepting them as part of the competitor that we have to treat well, something like that. And also, the concept of, well, if this is true that if you go to several universities in Flores and also in Molucas and also in Papua, there are some universities of Muhammadiyah which is, you can find 80% of the students and teachers, lecturers are non-Muslim. And they have like Christmas celebration there, they have all activities of Christian religion in that campus, in that universities. And this one is often used as a justification that Muhammadiyah has been adopting what you call it as tolerance. But for me, this one is a bit difficult to accept that one, because the litmus test for tolerance is not when a group of people become minority, but when they are the majority. So if we are in Java and giving place for Christian or for minority to have their celebration in campus, then you are tolerant. But if you are minority and giving place for a majority, then part of the trying to be accepted in that community. This one is related to the fate of tafsir thematic that was forbidden by some members of Muhammadiyah, and also Darul Ahdi wa Shahada that still struggle to be accepted by the people of this community. But one thing that I would like to underline here, that perhaps we can call this organization as a bit conservative in terms of theological doctrine, but it is not a kind of a fundamentalist movement. If we try to 5 commonly attributed elements of fundamentalism, like oppositionalism, believing in a doctrine of infallibility and divine inspiration of the revealed scripture, authoritarian, intolerant, exclusive attitude, anti-individualism, reactive, defensive, and selective attitude. I think number 2 is one of the character of Muhammadiyah. But Muhammadiyah is not following the rest of the characters of fundamentalism. Instead, well, perhaps in terms of the competition that Muhammadiyah is opposing to Christianity, but in positive way. What I mean by positive way, if the Christian build schools, then Muhammadiyah need to establish a school as competitor to Christian school. So it's like transforming the opposition spirit of fundamentalism into something positive. And of course there are some people that can be say very reactive and also defensive, but the general picture of this organization is not that one. And I think the one about the scripture, in that there is tidak ada kesalahan di dalam kitab suci, I think that's one of the belief. It's not only within the Muhammadiyah but also adopted by other groups. So that if that's the only criteria of fundamentalism, that all Muslim groups perhaps part of the fundamentalist Muslim. And then this one is, I think I want to skip this one because this is very detailed about the position of Muhammadiyah on 3 issues. This is a kind of test, a study case on the theological position of Muhammadiyah on 3 issues, on the recurrent issues of PKI, and then the Hizbut Tahrir, the banning of Hizbut Tahrir, and the constitutional court ruling on native followers, Penghayat Kepercayaan. You can see that the attitude of Muhammadiyah in these 3 issues a bit, perhaps it's not quite similar to the label as a reformist group, because they are like defending the Hizbut Tahrir, although actually defending democracy, but some people that translating that into defending the activities of Hizbut Tahrir, and also not protecting Penghayat Kepercayaan, and also joining with some group to celebrate, to make PKI again as bogeyman in Indonesia. This one is just pictures that you can see how the Muhammadiyah deal with these 3 issues. This one is Felix Xiao, perhaps you know him. So there is a what you call it, like this one is one organized by Muhammadiyah in Kauman, in the heart of the Yogyakarta, the palace of Yogyakarta. And this one is during the G30 SPKI, the broadcasting of the movie of PKI in several places in Indonesia. This one become a recurrent issue in Indonesia. It means that every tanggal 30 September, it's like every people like, wow, this one, we need to have something related to PKI, and then making people remember that this one is a threat for Indonesia. And although NU at the time was very active in destroying PKI, but there is a change right now in seeing PKI and trying more reconciliation with this group. But other people that were not active in 1965 now is become more active in showing the threat of the PKI, communism. And this one also the same. This one is like nobar, nonton bareng. What you call it, like watching together of movie G30 SPKI in SMA Muhammadiyah 2, Yogyakarta. Azhar, no, that's the place. And also in several places in Yogyakarta, Jakarta, East Java. And this one is Kokam, you know, paramilitary group within the Muhammadiyah. So NO, they have Banser, Barisan Serbaguna. Muhammadiyah, they have Kokam. So after the banning of HTI and also after the Aksi Bela Islam, Muhammadiyah seemed to be in the side of UBN, Ustadz Bachtiar Nasir, and also defending Felix Yao, and then giving guarantee that their activities would be safe. And while Banser tried to help to stop the activities of UBN and Felix Yao and several places. So it's like these two organizations have been pit together in several issues lately, and like to be two opposing organizations competing for, I don't know, for the ideals of Pancasila or ideal of Islam. So this one is Ustadz Bachtiar Nasir, and then even Pak Haidar Nasir, the chairman of Muhammadiyah, was complaining during his several speeches. I'm the chairman of Muhammadiyah. I was never being guarded like Ustadz Bachtiar Nasir, never surrounded by Kokam during my speech. And you know who is your leader, something like that. And then in several other places, he criticized the activities of Pemuda Muhammadiyah, who is that is closer to like Islamist group instead of to Nahdlatul Ulama or to other Muhammadiyah members. So we can see here, this one is FBI and this one is Kokam. It's like taking standing side by side between Muhammadiyah and FBI, protecting Ustadz Bachtiar Nasir, Felix Yao, and some other people, and even inviting like John Roo. Some Indonesian knows John Roo, but this is like social media activist who is allegedly anti-Shia, anti-minority religions, anti-Ustadz Quraish Shihab, and some other high pro intellectuals in Indonesia. This is statement of Buya Yunahar Ilyas related to Penghayat Kepercayaan. There are a hot debate within the Muhammadiyah on the issue of Penghayat Kepercayaan. So it's mean like the dream of the domination of Islam in Indonesia in politics still in the mind of several leaders, and they don't tidak rela like Penghayat Kepercayaan to be acknowledged, to have space, to have place similar to a religion, and inviting like Zakir Naik. He is also famous in Malaysia, right? So Muhammadiyah, and then some kind of public show of close relationship with non-Muslim. Well, there are several analyses on this issue. Could be from the concept of rivalry with the NO, can be a handicapped situation because nationalism and then Pancasila have been occupied by the NO, so some people need to take a different position. And then also solidarity with the Muslim. This is several concepts, and this is still theory. I mean, this is still a work in progress. I'm trying to propose a concept of pragmatic Islamism of Muhammadiyah in understanding the the dichotomy between social services and theological practices, theological doctrines within the Muhammadiyah. Why Muhammadiyah is not the same as Islamist group, why they are not the same as NO, and why, although they are joining in the Aksi Bela Islam and then supporting UBN and also did not agree with Ahmad, but they are not Islamists, they are not fundamentalists. Partly it is because of the hegemony of the theology of Al-Ma'un that make Muhammadiyah neutralizing or domesticating the ideals of making Islamic State or Caliphate within their organization. So they have been preoccupied with activities, pragmatic activities, and social activities that make them more realistic to see nation state, to see Islam, and to see the real challenges of Muslimhood. So the question is that I would like to ask you, and I don't know also the answer, how to be culturally and religiously inclusive, tolerant, but economically, educationally strong. For instance, to be Muhammadiyah with a strong economy, education, but also to be inclusive. I think this one is still a challenge for this community. And how to make a politically inclusive, theologically progressive Muslim organization, but at the same time economically progressive and sound. Some people, Muhammadiyah right now is still bending or inclining to the development in terms of using the term used by Azhar previously. I forgot where is it. But how to make development yeah, I cannot find it. Development as part of its identity is not only individual development, but also organizational development, but also having progressive, inclusive, and tolerant theology. That's the question that I think we need to deal with. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmad Najib, for interesting, inspiring, and insightful views of dynamism of Muhammadiyah. Now I would like to due to time constraint, we have to maybe open to 2 questions for the question and answer sessions. So, anyone from the floor? Yes, Isan.
Assalamualaikum. Thank you, Dr. Najib. Very interesting and very fascinating presentation about Muhammadiyah here as well. It's also good to know that you also presented the good side and also some of the more critical parts of Muhammadiyah. There's some points of reflection coming from Malaysia, especially how does this relate to the topic of development in our society. I would see it as, you can put it as something that's a comparative. We don't need to talk about comparison between Malaysia and Indonesia in one sense, because population-wise, Malaysia is populated by 30 million people population. And maybe between 2 to 3 million are also Indonesians. While Muhammadiyah, just based on I checked, it's not on Wikipedia, is 50 million. Right? So meaning that as an organization, we're not talking as a country, as an organization itself, it is the members of the organization is already the size of a country. And how I would like to relate to the also your presentation, how Muhammadiyah as an organization, one was able to sustain for more than 100 years, and are capable to develop hospitals and more than 100 universities and a lot of, I'm sure, other services as well. It is also already compatible to the country, right? And at the same time, towards the end of your presentation, there's also already a paramilitary unit which is already being established as well. So this it works well in a way if you see from the achievements of Muhammadiyah. While if you look at the context as a comparison in Malaysia, I'm sure that most or even all of the Muslim organizations, associations or any organization, if we combine overall the whole Muslim organizations in Malaysia, we are not even near whatever which is already being achieved by Muhammadiyah. Maybe one of the reasons is because whatever which is being developed within the society in Malaysia has been taken over by the government, because the government is the one who's taken all this role. So when it comes to providing education, providing hospitals, providing military, security, everything is being run by the government. Meaning that for the communities, NGOs, civil society groups, our role in the society is not so much big. And this is where I see there's a lot of differences, because as Dr. Farouk mentioned, last year we had one conference which we invited Professor Robert Hefner, which he explained about civil Islam in Indonesia. One of the conclusion points which I got is that Malaysia and Indonesia, we got two different development models. In Indonesia, is strongly driven by the society, by the community, by the civil groups. While in the case of Malaysia, is a lot more authority driven. It comes from the government. And anything about Islam, you talk about different types of theology. No, in Malaysia there's only one theology, which is must be approved by the government. Even the Qiblat in one area must also got the authorization from the institution. You cannot just in a way simply come up with a new version and you should related to Islam. So going back to my point here, the comparison of model one is Muhammadiyah as an example of very civil society based development compared to Malaysia as in a way maybe more structured, government based, authority based. What would be your comment on looking into these two models? Thanks.
Another final question. Yes, please.
Assalamualaikum. Terima kasih kepada dokter yang telah menyampaikan prestasi ya, jasa Muhammadiyah. Saya dari Nahdlatul Ulama Indonesia. Jadi begini, saya ada hal yang ingin ditanyakan, bahwa kalau tadi bahwa pembangunan di Muhammadiyah memang development yang paling penting adalah tentang dari fisikal, termasuk sekolah, hospital. Memang kita mengakui, Nahdlatul Ulama juga mengakui, tetapi mungkin kita lebih geser pembangunan itu kepada kemanusiaan. Begini, ada beberapa isu baik di Nusantara ataupun di Malaysia, bahwa itu isu keganasan. Isu keganasan itu juga salah satu adalah membangun karakter, membangun manusianya. Alhamdulillah kalau di sini Nahdlatul Ulama sudah memiliki 16 cabang. 16 cabang yang ada di Indonesia dan pusatnya ada di Cokek. Dan kemarin kami datang ke Pabok, ada orang yang menghibahkan tanahnya 7 eka untuk dibangun di Education Hub, itu ada dibangun sekolah Nahdlatul Ulama, dan tujuannya adalah untuk membentengi, untuk mengelakkan daripada keganasan ini, terorisme. Nah, jadi sebetulnya isu yang berkembang walaupun di Malaysia adalah bahwa ramai orang-orang Malaysia yang belajar di Timur Tengah, karena saya dulu di Al-Azhar, yang belajar di Timur Tengah di Jordan, dia balik ke Malaysia, dia balik ke Malaysia, dia biasanya jadi ahli parti. Balik ke Malaysia jadi ahli parti, jadi kader ya, kader partai, padahal dia hanya duduk di Jordan, di Mesir baru 4 tahun. Balik ke sini jadi ahli parti. Sehingga apa? Pandangan-pandangan beliau, dan ini tidak jarang di Malaysia dijumpai, mereka yang langsung reversi atau menyerang secara frontal kepada guru-gurunya di Al-Azhar dan di Jordan. Ini adalah source atau sumber yang menyebabkan terjadinya, salah satunya adalah radikalisme tadi itu. Yang ingin saya tanyakan adalah sebetulnya, kalau di NU mungkin NU akan memiliki cara-cara, termasuk di 16 cabang yang ada di Malaysia sendiri adalah bagaimana NU ingin selalu mengajarkan bahwa untuk kita itu tetap mengutamakan Islam rahmatan lil alamin dengan cara apa? Dengan cara tetap kita menjunjung thaqafah hadarah yang ada di Malaysia. Kalau orang Malaysia kita tetap menjunjung tinggi nilai-nilai Malaysia itu tadi. Nah, yang ingin saya tanyakan bagaimana Muhammadiyah untuk memberikan perlindungan atau cara mengelakkan daripada isu itu sehingga tidak terjadi. Karena jujur di Malaysia sendiri sebetulnya di Universiti Malaya juga ada salah satu lecturer saya yang juga terlibat, dan saya tidak perlu menjelaskan siapa dia. Dan karena orang Malaysia juga pada tahu, dan ini sudah terlibat dan juga dia ada hubungan kait dengan orang-orang terorisme yang ada di sebelah. Kemudian itu satu. Yang kedua, saya ingin sebetulnya bertanya berkenaan dengan sikap Muhammadiyah. Sikap Muhammadiyah berkenaan, kebetulan saya kawan-kawan Muhammadiyah di Malaysia ramai, termasuk Syafiq Anwar, Profesor Syafiq Anwar. Dia mengajar di University Utara Malaysia. 3 bulan yang lalu kami diundang ke sana. Kebetulan beliau juga memiliki pandangan yang sama dengan saya. Bahwa salah satu pandangannya adalah beliau juga menyokong Ahok dan saya juga menyokong Ahok, seperti itu. Jadi di sana terlibatlah dialog antara saya dengan beliau, dan yang ingin saya tanyakan sikap terhadap Hizbut Tahrir di Malaysia. Hizbut Tahrir termasuk di daerah-daerah Timur Tengah, sebetulnya Hizbut Tahrir adalah organisasi yang sudah dilarang. Itu jelas, di Malaysia sudah jelas. Tapi bagaimana pernyataan-pernyataan kawan-kawan di Muhammadiyah termasuk dan Hilsiman Junta berkenaan dengan Hizbut Tahrir, termasuk salah satu untuk melakukan perlawanan secara hukum setelah dibubarkan oleh oleh pemerintah, oleh negara. Ini juga kami tanyakan sikapnya. Karena apa? Jujur secara pribadi kami di NU, kawan-kawan Nahdlatul Ulama juga mungkin ragu apakah betul-betul Muhammadiyah ini ingin mengesampingkan, ingin menghabisi juga isu tentang terorisme, atau ingin mengganding untuk mendidik mereka. Itu yang perlu dijelaskan. Yang terakhir adalah, entah bagaimana kalau di Malaysia Nahdlatul Ulama ini cenderung disebut dengan agak liberal. Kalau Muhammadiyah Wahabi. ini. Jadi kalau lihat Said Akil itu dibuka karena kemarin seminggu yang lalu kami di Al-Hijrah, di TV Al-Hijrah, kami dibuka di Google itu memang Said Akil Syiah, Said Akil sesat, Said Akil liberal, Said Akil dajjal, seperti itu terus. Jadi yang ingin kami tanyakan Dokter di sini adalah apa sebetulnya yang menjadikan, apakah back to Al-Quran dan Sunnah itu adalah jadi salah satu yang menyebabkan mengapa Muhammadiyah dituduh sebagai Wahabi. Yang kedua adalah, adakah kami di Nahdlatul Ulama yang selalu bukan membela tetapi menghargai sisi kemanusiaannya kawan-kawan non-muslim yang Kristiani, termasuk ketika Ahok terlibat dalam tanda kutip menistakan agama dan Al-Quran, di NU kami tidak bersikap. Bukan karena apa? Karena kami lebih mementingkan soal sisi kemanusiaan itu tadi. Jadi bagaimana sebetulnya yang terjadi di antara Muhammadiyah? Kenapa Muhammadiyah disebut Wahabi sedangkan kami dituduh liberal? Sakit sebetulnya dituduh liberal. Terakhir. Kalau sudah
rasanya cukup agak ini. Terima kasih banyak kepada penanya soalan. Silakan.
Terima kasih, thank you. I give you an example. I think a few months ago, last year, chairman of Nahdlatul Ulama, Syed Akil Siraj, came to Singapore, and at that time, MUIS trying to avoid meeting with Syed Akil Siraj. We have activities on that day. We cannot meet you. It seems the label of liberal to NU is also widespread in Singapore. I don't know about that one. But during a few months after that, the chairman of Muhammadiyah, Syed Akil Siraj, came to Singapore, invited by RSIS and TU. Both of them actually invited by RSIS. And then MUIS is like the one that very active, like giving place and then accommodating the chairman of Muhammadiyah. So it's like the contrast view in seeing two organizations in Indonesia. And but the Muhammadiyah in Singapore is a bit different from the Muhammadiyah in Indonesia. If I was talking that there are some element of conservatism in Muhammadiyah in Indonesia, in Singapore is more. Is that true? So, for the first question about from Ihsan, comparing Indonesia and Singapore, I think one of the reasons why Muhammadiyah was able to develop a number of social services, schools, hospitals, etc. Was the spirit of, it's not spirit, it was also motivated by the weakness of the government at that time. So there are several places that there was no education, no school, and then it felt necessary for the Muhammadiyah to establish, and government did not establish school in that area, in Papua, in Moluccas, in Flores, and some other places that the government still missing to develop schools and hospitals in that area. So it is a responsibility of Muhammadiyah to develop that one. So one of the factors, sometimes strong state and weak state, also helping the growth. I think it's quite similar to Hefner, that the strength of civil society in Indonesia is one of the factors, is also the weak of the state. The strong of the state sometimes making civil society weak. But I think now the Muhammadiyah see the government as also competitor for its activities. Previously, it's like seeing each other as complementary, but it's, this one now Muhammadiyah government hospital is better than our hospital. Government school is better than us. So the competitor previously was only Christian schools, but now becoming more and more government schools and international schools that came to Indonesia. So because the world is becoming more global and the competitor is it's not only limited to the previous one, I think the issue of developing Muslim is perhaps getting more difficult right now than previous one. And about the number of Muhammadiyah, I don't know for sure but if we go to the number of the holder of membership card of Muhammadiyah, it is just below than 10 million people. According to Shafi'i Ma'arif, it's just about 1 million people. It's not more than that one. So it's not a very big. I'm in the Majlis Pustaka dan Informasi, the Majlis that responsible with the registration of the member of the Muhammadiyah. So the number is not as big as because if we are talking about the member of NU and Muhammadiyah, usually we count also the supporter, sympathisan, and also those who graduated from Muhammadiyah schools and universities and something like that, and those who have activities, ritual activities similar to this organization. And NU is even bigger the membership, because the death is also included in also counted as the member of the NU. Is that correct? Almarhum itu, orang yang sudah meninggal itu masih dihitung di dalam jumlah. So if you count 20 million, perhaps 40 million or 80 million since the time of Hashim Ash'ari. Always, even though the number, perhaps people have different kind of calculation, but usually the activist is always limited. I mean, I can give you an example. In East Java, this is the area of Nahdlatul Ulama. Perhaps NU, how many universities of NU in East Java?
Islamic school
universities di Jawa Timur? Perhaps 1, 2, 3. Muhammadiyah in each district they have university. So perhaps more than 30 universities in East Java alone. So this one is in my area, Blitar. The number of Muhammadiyah is perhaps less than 1,000. But they are very, very rich, not the individuals, but the organization. They have 2 universities, they have several schools, 3 hospitals over there. And East Java is the richest province of Muhammadiyah, equal to the amount of money belong to the Muhammadiyah in general. So this is the area with very small member of Muhammadiyah. So the number of people sometimes is not really matter, but the loyalty, the commitment of this member is, I think, the most important. And the spirit of capitalism, I think, still very much living in East Java. If you are trying to see it. And Azhar is one of the scholars that studying Muhammadiyah in East Java in Universitas Muhammadiyah Malang, right? One of the area of his study is in UMM. And then the second one is about radicalism, Hizbut Tahrir, and Ahok. What is the response of the Muhammadiyah in these issues? One of the dominant perspective in Muhammadiyah that we can see right now from the statement of its leader, like the statement of Bachtiar Nasir. The reason why Muslims were like becoming radicalist or becoming very defensive or very oppositional and something like that, because of our own weakness. We are weak in terms of economy, we are weak in terms of education, something like that. And the response of Muhammadiyah, and stated clearly several times, adalah membangun pusat-pusat keunggulan, right? Centers of excellence. But this is good. I agree with that one, because if you are weak, you will be defeated. But some people within the Muhammadiyah, I think, is more like in terms of economic determinism. I mean, if you are having more money, you can eradicate the problem of terrorism, radicalism, and also the issue of conservatism. Once you are capable of competing with other people, you will be, less radical and something like that. That's the spirit within the Muhammadiyah, why they are acting like they are proposing to have more pusat-pusat keunggulan, centers of excellence, instead of like fighting with radicals and something like that. And the view within Muhammadiyah, for instance, on the issue of terrorism, they believe that it is only Muhammadiyah that can bridge between the state and the terrorists and radicalists. The radicalists do not believe in NO anymore. And then the Muhammadiyah is the one who is not protect them, but giving advocacy, like Siono and something like that. So whenever the government like suppress this group, they run to Muhammadiyah. Just like when minority group are getting like discrimination, they run to NU. This one, the Muslim hardliner, whenever they got like suppression from government or from other element, they run to Muhammadiyah, and Muhammadiyah giving protection. So this one is this is why, like in several books, we can see that and the government is neglecting Muhammadiyah in the way of bridging between the government and radicalism and conservative. But because of this position, sometimes they are like inclined to be in that side, instead of like rescuing them. Some of them is joining them and becoming part of that group. That's the difficulty of being like becoming a bridge between two contrasting groups. And the case of Hizbut Tahrir, I think, is a very obvious example of that one. The reason of this is a very, very long statement of Muhammadiyah related to Hizb ut-Tahrir. I think previously the statement related to contemporary issues only 1, 2 pages or 3 pages. This one is more than 5 pages, about 10 pages statement related to Hizb ut-Tahrir. That this is the way Muhammadiyah to maintain democracy, and then to what you call it, like to protect the government from going down, just like Sukarno during 1965 when he supported like PKI. So this one is to maintain democracy is by opposing the Perpu nomor 2 tahun 2017. That among the reason of Muhammadiyah. Of course, some people like Simanjuta Daniel and some people like him, I mean, becoming like closer and then protecting the Hizb ut-Tahrir. But the main spirit of the Muhammadiyah is trying to balance the power of government and civil society, and also to what you call it, to maintain democracy in Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Dr. Ahmad Najib. Please give big round of applause to Dr. Ahmad Najib Burhani. So before we close the session, I would like to invite all participants to the same, exactly similar hall